Good evening, everybody. Hello, Fakeologist. The Fakeologist Show. It's Monday, January 30th, 2023. Do this show Sunday through Thursday between 8 and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time or Eastern Standard Time. Oh, I forgot. I'm going to stop saying that. Just Eastern North America time. Don't forget, you can go to fakeologist.com/live. And if you're a member of the Fakeologist blog, you will get an email. And also on the site, or also on the page, you'll see a Google Calendar. If you look at the bottom here, you can add this Google Calendar to your Google Calendar and get notifications from Google Calendar. In addition, you will get an email from the blog where I send a manual email out. And if you are registered on FakeOTube and you subscribe to the Fakeologist channel on FakeOTube, and there's only a couple of them, you will get an email from FakeOTube. You could potentially get up to 3 notifications for this show. So sign up at FakeOTube and send me your email at my email. I'm at fakeologist.com, and you won't miss a show. Now, we are also streaming live tonight on YouTube, Facebook, Unknown Causes Group, DLive, Twitter, and we used to be on Twitch, but they canceled us, so we don't need them anyway. And tonight, I got an email from a guy named Chester, and he wanted to be on the show, but he says he won't call in, but I can call him. So I'm going to call him now, and then we'll just start the show. We'll do about an hour. And where's his phone number? So let me just look it up here. Okay, here's his phone number. And it's actually a landline. How cool is that? Let's see if I can dial the number. I got to dial it manually. Okay, wait, I can do it here. Let's dial her up and see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see if it goes through. If he doesn't answer, we can just talk about the blog. Chester, it's the Fakeologist speaking. Hello.
Hey, Ab. Hey.
Hello. Wow. You answered on the third ring. That's fantastic. Are you listening live to the show?
I am not. No. I think I mentioned in my email. I can't. I don't have Wi-Fi in my apartment.
All right. Can I read your email to the Fakeologist family? Is it? I don't think there's anything too personal in it.
No. Go ahead if you want.
Okay. And I actually usually post feedback. I didn't happen to post this one right away because I figure we're going to be talking about it. So I'll probably put it in tonight's show notes if anyone wants to check it out. So let me go here. And Chester did what anyone can do. Go to fakeologist.com/contact. and that's the easiest way to contact me. Let me just see if what's on that webpage. Fakeologist.com/contact. That's my contact page if you don't want to email. So you can fill out a form, or it's got my phone numbers, it's got my Discord, it's got my email. So that's all on the contact page. And that's what Chester did. So hold on a sec. It says, "Hi, Ab. I've been listening to and enjoying your Fakeologist show for a few months. Greg Shantz recommended me." Hey, thank
Hey,
you,
hey,
Greg.
Greg. I'm sure Greg is listening right now.
Greg is listening on FakeoTube. The only reason I know that is if you go to the FakeoTube chat page, I'm pretty sure it shows who's on the chat. So Greg is always there. We've talked to Greg before. Lost Spider Phallus, hello. And George 22, hello. And George is in the UK. And Craig says, "Hi, Chet." Okay. Let's get back to the email. The two of us became friendly over the fact that we're both unvaxxed. So when he said that you're worth listening to, I paid attention. Oh, thanks, Greg. I live in Toronto, and of course, most of my friends and family believe and still believe the corporate media stories about COVID and the vax. I don't know many unvaxxed people. Well, I don't probably know that many either, but I'm one of them.
Yeah, none of us do.
I'm not sure you'd consider me a full-fledged fakeologist, but I'm much closer to being one than I was at the beginning of 2020, which is what I said. I said everyone is a potential fakeologist as of 3/11/2020. That's why I thought I'd do a show more daily, because I figured there'd be millions of people flocking to the site. It didn't really happen, but that's okay. So I'm glad that you are, Chester, you're a potential full-fledged fakeologist. I figured there'd be more of you, but that's fine. The nonsense of the corporate media's COVID stories woke me up to how much we're being lied to. Prior to 2020, I was skeptical about some stuff, like the JFK assassination and the official 9/11 story, but had no idea how large the problem is. For instance, I still believe that men really had walked on the moon and that there is a manned space station up above us. I'm considering sending a donation, but would want to do it in the old-fashioned way with a check. Okay. That's the only thing I don't take is a check, because I can't
Oh,
I can't cash a check name made out to fakeologists because it's not a business name in any way.
right.
And also, I mean, I've put in checks into my account before that aren't even made out to me, and nobody, I don't think the computer checks. But I'd rather not take a check in the case it could bounce, or not bounce, but just be rejected by my bank. And it says here, "I'm an old guy, 62, and prefer doing things the way I've always done them. I'm sure I should have learned how to do cryptocurrency before now, but I haven't. I don't see an address to mail a check on your site. You mentioned one on an episode, so I wrote it down." You almost got it right. It's
Okay.
box V as in Victor 33. That's one line, and then the next line should be 14, the letter B as in Bravo, dash 1822 Whites Road, Pickering. Is that correct? And yes, that is correct now, because thanks to Nancy in Nova Scotia, who's had 2 letters thrown back at her because the new owner forgot that, I existed, basically.
Yeah, you mentioned this is a virtual PO box.
Well,
What's
yeah, it's a UPS store, and, the guy didn't wanna sell me a full box, so he said, because I don't get much action, not much mail, so he just kept a file folder on his desk, and then
Oh,
he
okay.
sold the business and forgot to tell the, person in that took over the store.
So
So
you go in, but you don't have a particular box to open. You just say to the guy, "Hey, can you give me my mail?"
yeah, that's it, you got
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
that's what virtual stands for. Because I don't get a lot of mail, and it's pretty expensive to have a box. It's $20 a month.
Right.
And I don't make $20 a month through the donations that way, so I figured I'm not gonna do that. So I think he gave me half price. And anyway. So yeah, if you're gonna send, I'm really grateful that you're gonna send a donation, but for low amounts, I think you can just send cash in a nice Christmas card. No one's gonna see it.
Okay.
So I
Sure.
wouldn't worry about it. I don't think anyone in the Canadian mail system is opening mail and stealing money. and that's a shout out to Canada Post. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. If I was spending, I wouldn't send $1,000 cash, but $20, I wouldn't worry about that or whatever. So I'm not making a suggestion, but no checks. That's the only thing I'm not going to take because I'm not going to chance going to the bank and having them say, you got to register and business name and all that kind of nonsense. I'm not doing
Mm.
that. It's too much work. And most people that donate are donating through, well, I'm going to say the donor box, the donate box at the top of this page here. And it's pretty fast. And Stripe, the payment processor, is only stealing about, I think, 4%. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So if you send $20, I get 19.50. So 50, what's that as a percentage? 2%? Something like that.
I'm not good with math off the top of my head.
So they don't take too much. The donor box has really been really good. And shout out to Harmon who keeps sending me $20 every time I do a show. So Harmon, thanks a
Wow,
lot. Very
generous.
generous, super generous.
More generous than I'm going to be.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's really good that you are thinking about it. Yeah, so let me see here. Yeah, they take actually 63 cents from 20, which is about 30 cents from 10. So it's about 3%. That's fine. But anyhow, so that is how you donate. So thank you, Chester. And you asked me a question, and that was here. I got to keep bringing up the email. I wonder if I could just bring it up in a separate window. Maybe not. Okay.
I've got it here. I could read it out.
Yeah, go ahead. Read the question.
Okay. So a few months back, you had Simon Shack on, and you guys were talking about 9/11. According to you and Simon, if I'm understanding you correctly, the video footage of the towers coming down was prepared in advance, but the footage of the airplanes hitting the building was shot and faked live,
No,
resulting.
no.
Oh, okay. So I got
I'm
that
gonna say
wrong.
no to that right away. No, the whole thing was a made for TV movie, so everything was pre-planned. There's no way you could impose that live. The only thing live was the word live, which is evil spelled in reverse. No, that was not a live shot in any way. It's just a simulated scene that they put the word live on it to make you think it was live, just like a movie.
Okay, but in September Clues,
Mhm.
I seem to remember, and again maybe I misunderstood something, that there's that shot where the first plane, I think it's the first plane, is hitting the tower, and the nose seems to come through on the other side of the tower. And I thought the implication was that that was because it was done live and they kind of screwed up on the imaging or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, I know what you're saying. So that's a reasonable deduction you've made. And I don't know exactly what Simon's level of hypotheses was at that time. He may have still been trying to work things out, but and there has been no updated September clue. So he also hypothesized that they used a missile to take
Right.
the things down. But I think overall now all these things were put in there on purpose. Of course, the absurdity of a composite plastic nose cone making its way through steel and concrete intact to the other side is completely cartoon like. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So
So why would
what
they include that?
well, maybe it's just they put all kinds of gags in to make you and everyone else believe in foolishness and,
Right.
and the idea that people would debate whether that was a mistake as opposed to say the idea of the absurdity of a plastic and aluminum tin can crushing through concrete and steel. That's the real debate that should be asked, not did they make a mistake letting that video go through. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
they really have layers of, I would say, gullibility tests where they're just testing us all the time. Of course, we have no frame of reference because never in the history of the world has really any large plane crashed into a skyscraper that I know of that's been
Right.
videoed. So we don't have a frame of reference anyway. So now we're just dealing with movies and our imagination as frames of
Mhm.
reference. So that's my explanation there. I hope that was satisfactory.
Sure,
If they
sure.
if they had prepared the footage of the towers falling in advance, why wouldn't they also prepare footage of the planes hitting? Yeah. So yeah, that question I answered. So for sure,
Yep.
it's all for sure. And on the fly video manipulation would definitely probably go wrong. I agree with you. So
Mhm.
there's just no way. There's just no way that that could happen. I would say. And by the
Mhm.
way, Simon is going to be back on the show. If we go to the fakeologist.com/live page, he is going to be back on the show next month. I'm just looking at the calendar now. I don't know if I can scroll forward on this calendar. I guess I can't. So it's only showing January right now. But that's going to be Sunday because we have to do it Sunday because Simon is over in Italy. And we're gonna have Steve Dayock on. Have you ever heard of him?
Nope.
He has a website I think called 9/11 Crash Test. He was one of my first guesses. Guess rather. And here it is here, 911crashtest.org. And Steve is stuck in I don't know what his policy is right now, but he has been going on about this for ever since I started my show. And he just thinks that the official story is wrong, but he thinks I can't remember what he thinks, to be honest with you. He just thinks that people did die on that day,
Okay.
and
Whereas you and Simon think no one died, right?
probably not
Right.
because the Vixim report that Simon and Hoi Polloi worked on really shows how they just synthetically created these characters, the so-called victims. They call them Vixims, and really they haven't changed their mind. I haven't really changed my mind, and just shows how they use templates to really lazily create 3,000 different people in simulation.
Is that in? There's you have a link to the September clues stuff. Is that stuff in there? I don't remember seeing anything about that. About
Yes. So if you go to fake11.com/SC Sienna Charlie, then let's see here. This is the September Clues tour guide. So this is a link on cluesforum.info. So it's got the movie and it's got all the research where we have different questions. It's got 19 or so other addendum videos that are on FakeOTube. Um, does it have Vixim? Yes, it does. The memorial scams, the Vixim report, they're all on here. So really, if you haven't checked out the September Clues tour guide, you really should. Everyone
okay.
here should. There's so much more
Yeah,
on.
I watched September Clues and a couple of the other videos there, but yeah, Vixim, I don't know what you're talking about there. So obviously, I didn't check out everything.
You really should because it really breaks down how they decided once they looked at the 9/11 memorial site because they saw patterns that are not natural patterns where you would expect random people to
Oh,
show up.
Vixim, it's standing for victim simulation?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, okay, I get it.
So they saw patterns just in the way they almost made it seemed like they made the victims as they were making the memorial page because there's sequencing and variations on the previous victim where they just sort of changed a few things for the next victim. So they were kind of lazy about it, and that's where they realized that these are all simulated people. Mhm.
Mm.
That's where they saw the patterns. So I'm kind of just trying to remember all this because I'm not really talking about this on a regular basis anymore because it's
Mhm.
just so old.
Right.
But it's really important to know all this because
Sure.
all the simulations are really extensions of 9/11 simulation, where this is the big one, but this was the big one of that generation. But now we're on to the COVID scam, which is
Yeah, the big one now.
oh, it's just it dwarfs 9/11 by 1,000 times.
Mhm.
It's phenomenal. But, it's really great to understand 9/11 because when COVID came along, it's just a no-brainer. Really easy.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking a lot of 9/11 at, at the beginning of COVID, but the thing that sort of like when in mid March when all the COVID stuff started, I believed along with everyone else around me. I was like, oh, okay, there's a virus and we got to protect ourselves and I gotta wash my hands all the time and whatnot. Um, but I think one of the things that saved me was that I knew about, or one of the things that helped me clue in relatively quickly within a month or so was that I knew about all the AIDS stuff, the AIDS fakery. I had read do you know that book by John Lauritsen? I think it's called The AIDS War, or is it The AIDS Wars? Something like that.
No, I don't know that one. What did they talk about in that? John
Well,
Lauritsen?
Lauritsen was into Peter Duesberg's
Oh, good.
ideas.
Okay, yeah.
So I was a Duesbergian for after reading that book and until the COVID era, where I it took the COVID stuff it wasn't until the COVID stuff that I started to hear all the stuff about terrain theory versus whatever versus germ theory. um, so up until then, I was like, oh, Peter Duesberg's got the right idea, and also tied in with that was knowing about the PCR test and how that was nonsense and used to fake all the AIDS stuff. And so then when I heard, oh, the test for COVID is the PCR test. Oh, okay. Um, yeah, that was kind of like the turnaround there for me.
And you're from Toronto, so you have you lived in Toronto your whole life?
No, I was born in Montreal.
Okay.
Moved here when I was 19, which would have been 1979.
Okay.
Moved here because I never learned to speak French. So,
Oh,
uh,
you were born in the English part of Montreal?
I was born in Montreal, but grew up outside in one of the suburbs, a
Okay.
place called Chateauguay.
Okay.
Um, and it was, I mean, it was probably half and half French English in those days. I definitely had French friends, but all my French friends spoke English, so I never had to learn French. And so,
So you
yeah,
came down the 401 with half of Quebec when the Parti
basically,
Québécois came
right,
into power and basically were just trying to enforce language laws and they wanted an independent Quebec. And banks like the Bank of Montreal, they moved their headquarters from Montreal
right.
to Toronto. And half of the business doesn't like instability, so they just moved operations. Montreal, many people don't know, was the biggest, most important city in Canada for a long time.
Oh yeah, I remember. I mean, when I was a kid, it was the biggest city in Canada, and I remember when the turnaround came, and suddenly we were number two, and Toronto was the
Yeah,
big city, and being sort of disappointed. Oh, we're not number one anymore.
yeah.
Uh, but
And
yeah,
that was just all because that René Lévesque, the Parti Québécois, got into power and they just started talking about breaking away from Canada.
Hmm.
And and that's where Trudeau won. He was a buddy of Rene Levesque back in the day, and obviously those two were sort of conspiring in a way to destroy Canada. And now, of course, that's happening by Trudeau number two, as implementing just mainly globalist policies that his dad sort of kicked off. And even the FLQ crisis was most likely a psychological operation. And the only person I've ever heard talk about that is just in the last couple of years, Matt Ehret, who's in Montreal, is a pretty good alternate historian for does British and Canadian research, and I found him fascinating. Did
Oh,
you?
okay.
Yeah, so even the FLQ, there's not much chance that they actually killed anybody. Where,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. I don't know if
Okay.
Matt Ehret says it that way, but he definitely says it was an engineered event and most likely a psychological operation slash hoax. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
that's
I've got a friend who just did. I'm actually a cartoonist. I write and draw graphic novels,
oh, nice.
and I've got a graphic novelist friend who's about to come out. He just did a book about the FLQ, and but I think his take is much more the normal establishment take. He's not presenting it as an operation. It's a really good book, though. I've read it.
Okay, but
I
he
mean, if
thinks it was
one,
real.
yes, he thinks it was real.
Hmm.
But if one wants to know the basic facts, at least from the establishment perspective, it's not out yet. But I think it's coming out later this year.
So if you want to
So
know the official story,
yeah,
then read the book. But
yeah,
yeah, it's not really a topic. Like most of Canadian history, obviously I was born and bred in Canada. Canadian history is really boring. It's absurdly boring. But
right.
if you listen to Matt Ehret and his description of basically what's happened in Canada for the last 100 years, it's actually fascinating.
Hmm.
I mean, Canada really, for a while, was this young, up and coming nation that was really going to build a country for the people. But that just doesn't work for the banking system. They just cannot have that kind of wealth distributed throughout the population. That they just won't have it. So they scuttled it, and one of the main guys to scuttle it was Trudeau number one.
Right.
That was sort of
You're,
the end of things. So Matt Ehret's the only guy that makes it Canadian history really interesting.
you're not going to tell me the Riel story was fake, are you?
Well, he doesn't talk about that, so I
Okay,
don't
good.
know, but it
I'm
could have been.
asking because my big best-selling graphic novel is a graphic novel about Louis Riel. So
Oh, nice.
for those of you outside of Canada, Riel was a 19th century. Well, he led some rebellions in the 19th century against the Canadian government, and
Mhm.
then they hanged him. So
Right.
yeah, it's a very interesting story.
And that actually might have been one of the most interesting stories in Canadian history that we learned back in school, and that wasn't that interesting a story. So if that was the most interesting story in Canada, then you know how boring our history was. It was really dull. But yeah, that
Well,
was
I think if you read my graphic novel, it'll come off as I think it's an interesting story.
okay. Where can do you have a link to it? Can we look it up? Where can we get your novel?
Uh, it should be, I don't know, available through whatever Amazon or Indigo or whatever. All the major book. I mean,
What's
it's
it
still.
called?
It's called Louis Riel, maybe a comic strip biography or something like comic book
Mhm.
biography, something like that.
How long ago did you write? You already forgot the name?
Yeah, it came out about 20 years. Yeah, 20 years ago. 2003.
All right. Louis Riel comic book?
Just type in Louis Riel Chester Brown, it'll come up.
All right. Okay, we're gonna find it. Oh yeah, there you go. Good for you. Is that your pen name?
It's no, that's my real name.
Wow. I was
Uh,
gonna say, am I talking to Charlie Brown?
I know, I know. I've gotten that before.
I
People
guess.
thinking because it's so close to Charlie Brown that it must be some kind of pseudonym. But no, no, it's my real name.
Oh, that's cool. Good for you. Well, it's sold out at Indigo.
What?
It says here paperback sold out. So I guess you have to buy the. No, it says it's sold out right on Indigo screen.
Huh?
You better call your publisher. No wonder the money stopped, huh?
No, no, no. There's a new edition out.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, it
I
says,
yeah.
or maybe this is it. Here's another one, 27.95. Okay. Okay. So this is a different. Okay, this is it's a black and white cover of the same thing. Okay.
Mm.
I'll put a link to this one. I'll put a link in show notes. We got a real live author on the line. This is cool. There you go, people. So there's the thing, and if you want to buy it off Amazon, I don't get any points off Amazon anymore. They don't. I don't know what happened. I was making something off Amazon about 10 years ago, but I think they cut me off. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put a link to Amazon. You
Well,
guys,
personally, I try and avoid ordering anything through Amazon. I try any other way of getting a book. Usually, I just order it through. If my local bookstore doesn't have it, then I order it through them.
this says not sold in stores. You have to order it online.
But
Yeah, I'm reading the Indigo page for your book. It says not sold in stores.
no, no, it's sold in stores.
Yeah. No, seriously, I'm just looking here. I'm on the Indigo site. You can't see my screen right now. But
Or you can get it through my publisher. The publisher is Drawn and Quarterly, and so
okay.
drawnandquarterly.com, I guess. I'm sure you can get it through them.
Well, you've got a lot of stuff here. You got paying for it. Um, the critically lauded memoir about being a John. Oh,
That's right.
in-
Paying for sex.
oh, okay. Is that something that is that a biography?
It's
Autobiography?
autobiography, yeah, memoir.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's a whole topic right there.
Sure.
Woo. Okay. Wow, we should get into that maybe one time.
Oh, if you want.
Ed the Happy
It's not
Clown.
really,
Yes, go ahead.
fakeologist material, but
No, it's certainly controversial. But
sure.
well, one of the things that because I can't talk about 9/11 every single day, and COVID came into play and took over. Um, I have done other types of interviews just from a fakeologist point of view. So, for instance, if we talk about, say, South Africa, which has sort of been an interest from my days when I like to follow the news and listen to controversial people in Canada. Uh, you're getting an interview from a guy that is a fakeologist. So, for instance, I'll ask a guy who's telling me about his experience in South Africa if there's anything fake about the story that he knows of from a fakeologist point of view. So, I can talk about anything, but always have this super skeptical bent about every story that maybe the average interviewer does not. So that's sort of my angle on it, because anyone can talk about anything, but
Right.
whether or not it's interesting or not is another story. So I could probably, I'm not sure where we could fit fakery in to a story like that, paying for it, but just know if I did do the interview, I would be fairly skeptical about this about the
Sure.
story, because of course I'm so conditioned to being lied to by almost every single story that I just don't take anything at face value anymore. It's not the easiest position to have, but it's my position and I can't really shake it. You can't stop it.
Mhm. Mhm. Sure.
All right. So let's so the whole purpose of me calling you, I've already burned 40 minutes off of the call by doing most of the talking, is just to I just want to get your awakening story. So why don't we hear that? Cuz
Okay. Okay. Oh, well, I guess I gave part of it there. The realizing back in it would have been back in the early '90s that I picked up that book by John Lauritsen about about AIDS. So
Now, why were
um,
you interested in that? Does that tie into your recent book about paying for it?
no, not at all.
Okay.
I wasn't paying for sex back in those days.
Okay.
I was just, there was the establishment or corporate media perspective on what AIDS was, and actually the the first thing that got me questioning that a bit was actually CBC. CBC was better in those days, I think. They had in their regular news broadcast, they would be claiming that AIDS was caused by HIV and whatever. But then they had this show called Ideas in the evenings, and they still have they still have that show. But back then, they would be willing to, I don't know, get a bit more extreme, or put forward controversial ideas.
Mhm.
And so they had a couple episodes about this idea that maybe AIDS wasn't caused by HIV. Um, and so, I had that kind of in my mind. And then I read a review in some obscure magazine about this book by John Lauritsen, The AIDS War. And so I picked it up. Would have been the early '90s at that point. So the AIDS story had been going for about 8 years at that point, I think. Um, and yeah, here he was saying that he didn't think AIDS existed at all. Um, and he made a convincing case. So um, yeah. So then later, well, and I had my doubts about some other things, as I mentioned in that email. The Kennedy assassination, and um, what else did I mention? Oh yeah,
9/11, of
the nine
course.
eleven thing.
Yeah.
I had as kind of like, oh, maybe those are, well, they seemed a bit suspicious. I knew there were theories about them. I never investigated them. I never read any books about them. Um, I would have seen that. What was it? The JFK film by what's his name? Um, the one
Oliver
that
Stone.
starred, yeah, Oliver Stone,
Yeah,
right?
I watched that and I thought for sure we were gonna find out. That's how naive I was. I thought, "Okay, I'm gonna watch the movie. It's all over. Finally, we get to know." No, it's
Right.
total reinforcement of the myth.
Oh, okay. Uh,
Yeah.
well, I bought into it, but at least it came from, it didn't reinforce. Well, I suppose from your perspective, it did reinforce the
Well, I
established
did a lot
story.
about I didn't really know every variation of the theme. I just knew the official story was insane,
Right.
and it couldn't be that, but there were so many alternate versions. They all are possible, where anything
Right.
is possible and nothing is knowable, and I didn't even know the angle that Oliver Stone was going down.
Yeah.
I've never heard that one, but I left, just as dissatisfied coming out as I did going in. I thought I really didn't get anything out of this, so we're no further ahead.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Well, at least it questioned the. I mean, the establishment story was that one person uh, had killed. One lone nut had
Yeah.
killed JFK, whereas Stone's version, it was some sort of conspiracy. So some grander thing. Um, uh, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Um, that was as far as I really got into the JFK thing at that time. Watching that movie, like I said, didn't read any books about it. I was just like, oh yeah, it's the official story is at least suspect. Um, but yeah, then COVID came along, and like I said, it took about a month to figure things out, to figure that we were being lied to, which was mind-boggling to me. I was like, can there really be a deception this large? But there's no way I could believe it. It was obvious nonsense. And yeah, that ended up leading me to other stuff, like realizing, hey, all that NASA stuff, that didn't happen either. All that stuff's fake. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, it opened up a huge can of worms, didn't it? For me, it
right.
was
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Once you can see they're willing to lie about something that large, then you go, okay, there must be other big lies too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Once you figure they can tell a big lie and get away with it and nothing happens, JFK, 9/11, even if you believe the official story, the fact that they haven't really satisfactorily solved the problem, or at least they haven't, sorry, explained the crime properly to make it make sense, where they just say, "Oh, it's just some guy in a cave. He did it." It just
Right.
then you realize, wow, the whole world can be lied to. They get away with it. Nobody that questions it can do anything about it. They know they can get away with it. We know they are getting away with it. So what else are they up to?
Right.
That's when it really becomes disturbing. Okay, 9/11 was one thing, but all the other things, what 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 possibly else could they be up to? And then it never ends. And I just typed in whatever my favorite thing to question was and added the word hoax back in the day and saw whatever Google would serve me at the time, which wasn't a whole lot. So one of the things that bothered me was nuclear, because if you think about it, is there anything more destructive as they describe it than a nuclear bomb? It just basically would wipe out the whole world or your part of the world. And when I looked into that, I thought, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
this is
I
all
I actually
fake. I mean,
yeah.
wow.
I actually read a book, I think back in the 80s, um, where the idea was that they had faked, the bomb, the nuclear bomb,
Yeah.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that stuff. It was all fake. Um, and it was a fun novel. I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea, but I didn't believe it. It's a novel.
Yeah. You suspend disbelief.
Right. And now I'm like, oh, that novel was true.
And by the way, I did interview a guy that was in the Bikini Atoll. It
Okay.
was the father of Ken, who is a caller in here. I've been just I haven't put together the phone call because we had about 6 broken calls that I have to stitch together. And he was a witness to what he was told was the nuclear test for the H bomb, I think. There's many bombs. There's the H bomb and the this bomb, the
Right.
neutron bomb. It's all the same fakery though. But he was there in the area. So he was on a ship, or I think. And I was gonna stitch that together. I did that in November actually. I figured I would get it done much quicker, but I was super busy November, December. I will put that out because Ken's father did put the time in. I didn't learn a whole lot, but I will put it out there as,
No, I'd be interested in hearing it.
yeah, I'm gonna put it out. There's not a lot there. You're not gonna find out much, but if he really was there, it is kinda interesting that we can actually talk to someone all these years later who's still alive that really he can't really give us any extra juicy pieces of information, but it just shows you, even if you're there and they're faking it, you're not gonna be able to really explain it to the world, and B, um, you're just not going to be able to determine whether it was real or fake either. You really can't do much discernment, even if you're there, because they can cover all the questions and have all the answers to basically address any inconsistencies in the story. They have everything covered. They're not stupid.
Mhm.
Is what I'm trying to say. Let me just look at the the Facotube chat. We have Lost Spider Fallacis. Hello. George 22, evening from the UK. Greg says, hi, chat. Blake 70 says, everything about this world is fake. Well, everything in the media is fake that they tell us. Harmon says, look into the Empire State Building. It was hit by a plane. Do we have video of that? Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe Harmon gave me a link
Leslie
here.
Mitchell reporting.
Well, you can't see this chat, but let's see if this video has the shocking crash. It says here.
The Empire State Building. It's a gigantic place filled with offices and workers, almost a business city on its
They
own.
said 13 people died, including the crew that crashed into the Empire State Building, which I guess was the tallest building in the U.S. at the time. But of course, how would they capture it live?
So supposedly they
This
did.
was the scene of the recent plane crash.
I
It happened when
do
workers were at their
not
desks on
think
a
so.
Saturday morning between 9 and
That
10
this is
o'clock.
just a story about
Miles away, a Mitchell
the
bomber had taken
crash.
off from Bedford, Massachusetts. The pilot, flying over LaGuardia airfield, was advised to land because of fog. But he headed for Newark instead, along what he thought was this route. The route he actually took led him straight through the fog into the Empire State Building.
Yeah, I don't think. Of course, especially if it's foggy, there's going to be no way to video that. Of course, but this is obviously maybe just a simulation. All right, so that's going to be in the Facotube. That's going to be in the comment section of this video, so you guys can click on that.
Never heard about that one. Of course, I've
Yeah,
heard about the Hindenburg, but
right. Greg Shant says David Angel was probably real. No, I don't think so. I don't think
David.
anyone. I don't think anyone real died on 9/11. As a matter of fact, I have another quick link, fake11.com/11. And that leads to a post on Fakeologist, 11 ways to simulate victims, making victims. So you guys should read all that. That explains how they simulate victims. Fake11.com/11. I'll put that as a show note. That'll be show note number 5, fake11.com/11. So this is FAK665, Chester, and you
Yeah,
guys.
this is an episode I won't be listening to.
Well, you don't need to. You're in it.
Sure.
I don't like listening to my own stuff either.
Yeah, exactly. I never listen to my own interviews.
Oh, have you done quite a few just based on your
Oh
books?
yeah, sure.
Oh, wow. Kate Emma says, "Have you spoken to Brian S. Stavely at Dose of Reality? He too says no one died, and his website has more info." Yes, for sure. I've interviewed Brian many times. Many times. He's a fantastic researcher and does a great show and has great 9/11 shows. So if you haven't heard his stuff, make sure you go to his website, therealnewsonline.com. And he kind of inspired me to do my own radio show using my own software because he was doing something similar. I improved upon what he was doing, but yeah, he was definitely inspirational to this show. And that is 11 years ago. Crazy. Harmon says the COVID story is just the same as the geocentric story. One is about an unseen outer space as to the unseen inner space. Both are all CGI. Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
Yeah, Greg says, I don't think he died, but I think he was a real person. Yeah, they do insert operatives in the media and in the entertainment complex into the stories to give them doses of reality. I agree with you, Greg, on that. The United States spends half their budget on the military, so that's There's a lot of money to really influence or run influence operations on their own people. There's tons of money to hire actors in Hollywood and book writers. Has anyone come to you, Chester, to say, "Hey, can you maybe help write a script for a future op that they might have created?"
Definitely not.
Do you think that some of the leading authors in the world are writing helping write scripts for, say, many of the simulated events that go on all around the world, including the States?
I don't know. I suppose it's possible, but wouldn't the stories be a bit better if really good authors were writing them?
Well, the 9/11 story, do you think that was a good story? Like all the
The
sub-stories? 'Cause
buildings fall down. I mean,
Mhm.
what's the good story?
Well,
I
there's
mean,
a lot of
it
victim
had a huge
stories.
impact on us, um, because of but I don't know. It's not that great a story, really.
No. No, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. A lot of maybe, writers in training, but I just wonder if a lot of the ideas from, say, Stephen King novels, what was his book on something on terror? He writes a lot of stuff that really it seems like they lift a lot of the material and put it in their different simulations. A lot of concepts anyway.
Mm.
But, okay, so basically COVID got you questioning everything. So what's your take on what they're doing? Do you have a take on what the purpose of all this is? Do you have a take on viruses, on contagion? What's your take on
Um,
Canada, city you live in? I mean, it's pretty
I
big.
don't know that I have a conclusion on any of that stuff. I mean, I think we'd all like to know who really is behind this and why they're doing this. Um, I mean, in broad outlines, it's kind of obvious. So certainly, COVID resulted in more political control. More freedoms were taken away from us. So, I mean, we can see that that makes a certain amount of sense as far as um, the powers that be wanting to fake something like this. Um, but the ultimate goal, where are they leading us? Yeah, I don't know. Like, my guess would be that the next thing is going to be, they obviously want to bring in the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, and so there's probably going to be some sort of engineered financial event. That would be my guess. But hey, I thought they were going to do it I thought they were going to do it last year, and it didn't happen. So, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. But um, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, how long have you been listening to my show? Because I don't wanna repeat what I've said in the past, but how long.
Uh, since well, if I heard the Simon Shack one, I'm guessing that went up September 11th.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I haven't talked to him for a while.
right.
It's been a while. Well, really, I think that they're just trying to completely re-engineer everything. I think that the money system has reached the end of its, um, effective date in the sense that they've really run so far into the negatives that now they're just gonna do a debt jubilee and just reset everything. But the reset is going to come with a whole new concept of money, smart money, programmable money, so they can
Right.
control every aspect of it. Because they know that the capitalist system as it stands now is just gonna keep growing, it's gonna keep ignoring all their ideas that we need to preserve this earth. So they figure the only way to control capitalism is to completely centrally manage it. So they're not going to get rid of it, but I really think they are going to blend it into this third way, yeah, I guess it's the third way. And we talked about that last night when we were talking about communitarianism, because that's the third way. It's an old concept, but I really think combining that with technocracy, they're going to just create a Chinese style system that worked quite well in China for the last 30, 40 years. I don't know if it has enough legs to keep going even in China. Uh, well, obviously they've changed it in China where they have their zero COVID policy, which is just their way of being e- exerting even more control than they're even trying over here right now. Try it over there first, see how much the Chinese kick up a fuss against it, and then iron out all the kinks and bring it here. But I really think it's communitarianism, which is a word almost nobody knows what it means. And I've tried to talk about it a few times, and I'm still trying to hash it out because no one else is really explaining it. But that's really what they want to bring in. And
Well, I don't know. I heard the episode last night with Lark and
okay,
Brian and Jenna, and it seemed like Lark was very like he was complaining that people like James Corbett aren't talking about it, but
mhm,
I feel like Corbett is talking about it. He's just not using the same. He's not using the word communitarianism,
mhm.
but he's talking about all these ideas about how they're bringing in a different system and um, how they want to impose CBDCs on us and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't really follow Corbett that much. He's not really. He doesn't see if someone is really far off my 9/11 point of view,
Right.
then I don't give him my complete attention. I do listen to some of his stuff, but I have to ask, okay, if you're really not coming to a similar conclusion that I am, because you have all the same access to all the same information I do, then why aren't you?
Right.
So, so does that make you a gatekeeper or a guardrailer, as IPS says? And to me, the answer is yes. Because
Okay.
I found out everything I need to know about 9/11 in about 3 weeks, and nothing really has changed my mind since. But why couldn't he do that? Why is he still railing about 3,000 people dying? Why
Mm,
doesn't he at least talk about the possibility that they could fake that too? Because if you're going to fake some parts, why wouldn't you fake all of it?
right.
It's just logic. You don't need any great understanding of psyops and operations. You could just take it to its logical conclusion. Just you fake it. It's easier and less complex to fake something than to go through all the problems of killing people. Like, can you imagine actually killing all those people? Because by extension, there's going to be at least 5 people per victim that are going to be screaming from the top of every mountain wanting explanation compensation.
Right.
And really, they're really, I don't think anyone can think of some of the major family members other than one or two that were given to us that we're talking about the people that they said died on 9/11. I think there's Bobby and Billy McIlvaine, that guy.
Okay.
He was in all the videos for a while, but he was the only guy that really stood out. So it just makes more sense to fake everything because you can manage the outcome of everything and then just put the whole thing to bed after a few years and everyone will forget about everything. And
Hmm.
they'll just repeat a couple of the main points like 3,000 people died. They still say that today to this day. They just repeat it as if if it's a fact, which of course it was one of the main things they wanted to be repeated. Planes hit towers, 3,000 people died. Osama did it. We got him. End of the story. That's those are the talking points from 9/11.
Mhm.
So that's why I think it's much more manageable to fake it and use all your Hollywood special effects to do so. So makes
Yeah, it makes a certain amount of sense. I still haven't. I'll have to check out that VixSim
Mhm.
section on your site there, but
Yeah.
um, obviously I haven't looked into that part of it. But sure, it makes sense.
Yeah, well, you have to be interested in it. But it's very relevant to this day because they use the same thing for all the events. And you've lived in Toronto since the 70s. And have you looked into all the so-called events in Toronto that we were told were horrible things that happened? Now, there isn't a lot that goes on in Toronto when it comes to psyops, but you really have to look at every single major event and question it. And it made me question the police killings. We don't have a lot of police killings in Canada, but it
Mm.
made me question all of them. It made me question the Bernardo event because my
Okay.
wife lived, I would say, within walking distance, 15-minute walking distance of Bernardo.
Mm.
So she was terrorized. She was the exact description of his favorite girl. So and she was in the area at the time. And when you look at that story, you think, "Oh my goodness, is this a psyop?"
Sure.
I think
Or
I think it was.
the Young Street van attack.
Yeah, definitely. Now, hardly anyone talks about it because there aren't enough Canadian fakeologists, and there aren't enough fakeologist fans in Canada. Period. Canada is one of my least attended to countries. I mainly attract Americans, UK, Australia, and then Canada to the website. So it just tells me Canadians aren't interested, or there are not enough Canadians that are interested, even in Toronto. But yeah, the van attack was really piss poor when it comes to psyops. I thought all kinds of them, but the Bernardo thing was a big one. Also the Clifford Olson thing, the pig farming.
Oh,
The pig
right.
farmer, they're all up. See, that's the beauty of being
Yeah.
a fakeologist. You can go back and revisit all the stories and try and dig up whatever you can all these years later. And the stories just are full of holes and they're full of magic numbers, all the things that we look at as clues to psyops.
Hmm.
And the FLQ crisis, manufactured, possibly. It's way far back in history, so there aren't a lot of things to go on, but people like Matt Ehret pulled it apart. Um, we had a couple things re they kind of have escalated over the last few years because I think it's all part of just taking over Canada by outside forces that are running the governments now, taking over. So, for instance, there was some attack on Parliament Hill. There
Oh,
was
right.
the train derailment in Quebec.
Oh, the one that just happened in December, you mean?
No,
Oh,
this
no, no,
this
no.
one was with Harper as prime minister. I can't remember what's the name of that town in Quebec. Because the rail
Oh, yeah, Megantic, is that it?
yeah, it was a town where yeah, it was Lac-Mégantic. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a town where the rail line went right through the city, which of course is how villages and cities were created in the railway days. And they wanted to all these cities, they want to take the rail lines out of the center of the city and bypass the cities, which makes sense. And I think they staged that whole event just so the governments would pay for that because it's pretty big undertaking. No small village could pay for that. So
Hmm.
that had tons of fakery in it too. That was a whole operation, I think. Even going as far back as when you came to Toronto, 1979, we had the Mississauga train derailment where they evacuated a whole small city west of Toronto.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
lived there at the time. I was right on the evacuation line. So we weren't
Mm.
evacuated. But if you look at that story, I think it was the 33rd rail car that went off the tracks.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it just doesn't end.
Right.
So that was another drill slash simulation. And it resulted in certain laws being changed where you couldn't maybe transport hazardous goods through a city, which is it's a fine end goal. It's a noble lie, but they have to lie about it to make laws and expropriate or abscond with money to make it happen.
Hmm.
Just like the van attack. You say, well, why would they do that? Well, it's because they want to turn major roads, get cars off them, and Agenda 21ify all the roads in Toronto. So it's going to happen.
Oh yeah, like King Street. You can't drive down King Street.
No. Yeah, you're right. I know.
yeah.
I'm a courier. I used to be a courier, so I know they changed it right after I stopped driving courier downtown. So yeah, you can't go straight across. You have to keep turning.
Hmm.
Eventually, they will ban cars from downtown. It's getting really close. Like we're getting closer and closer. There will be
Yeah.
no private car traffic in Toronto, guaranteed. To me, it's a guarantee. They're already doing their damnedest with construction to make it impossible anyway.
Oh yeah.
So
So much construction.
it's gonna happen. So all these things are just to further the case, further it along. But all kinds of major crimes, major events, even in Toronto, are staged. And it's crazy when you start looking into it. So I find it really liberating to know that, okay, well, there aren't really people getting murdered in the way we're told, and in even the city I live in. Just down the road, I think they did a drill in Scarborough where they said a guy was walking around with what looked like a gun. I think it was a broom or something, or a BB gun. And it said that the police in their division just shot him dead.
Right.
No, no, I don't think that happened.
Well, it does put a different perspective on a lot of stuff. We grow up with this idea that man is, or humans are warlike, and we're constantly making war on each other.
Yeah.
And then it turns out uh, most, or perhaps all, of these wars are bogus. And so how warlike really is man? Um, Maybe we're not as bad as they want us to believe.
Yeah, people aren't that bad. And they don't really no one in the world likes war. Only the people that profit from it like it as a business. So it goes on and on. Did you hear my theory that I think even Rob Ford, they faked his death?
I have not heard that. No.
Hmm. Well, my theory is it doesn't really interest most of the audience, but I think that
Hey, Rob Ford made a big splash. Everyone knows. Doesn't everyone
yeah,
outside of, like he
no,
was
you're
one of
right.
the he was one of the most famous Canadians for a while.
Yeah, well, you're right. He went worldwide. I think he was kind of modeled after Marion Barry in Washington D.C. Remember
Okay.
that guy? So they kind of modeled the story after him. But I really think that they made a power shift deal between Rob, his brother Doug, who's the premier of Ontario now, John Tory, who's the mayor of Toronto. I think it was sort of a three-way deal where Rob wouldn't run again. The only way he wouldn't run is if he died, really, and he would have
Okay.
won. And that would have kept John Tory out because John Tory was going to probably go run for premier again because he lost badly back 20 years ago for
Hmm.
running for the party because he's kind of the left wing version of a right wing guy.
Right.
So I think those guys all made a deal where Rob would fade out of the picture and that would allow John Tory to ascend to become mayor, which isn't a powerful job, but the long-term goal is to make a mayor as powerful as a premier under Agenda 21, where there'll
Mm,
be mega cities. I don't know if John Tory will be along. He won't be around maybe long enough to realize that, but they've already bestowed extra powers to the mayor in Toronto right now. And
mm,
it's just going to become another type of dictatorship for mega cities.
right.
And that allowed Doug, who has no charisma but has the family name, to ascend to the premiership, which he did. And I was a member of the party, just a voting member, just so I could vote, and I guarantee you my vote wasn't I didn't even get a ballot. I couldn't get a ballot, which to me told me the whole thing was fixed, and it can be fixed. They don't need to do anything special. They can just say he won the vote to be leader of the party. So that's how he got in. I think it was just a three-way deal,
Mm,
and I think Rob's walking around right now,
mm.
guaranteed.
But if it's all fake,
Or engineered.
are you saying that Doug is just a bad actor? I mean, why does he have no charisma? Why did Rob have? I mean, Rob was a great character. If it's a phony story, he's a
Yeah.
great
He
character.
was a great character, and I think he did really have charisma. What I'm
Mm,
saying is they had to make a fake story to get him out of the picture. Because why else would
right,
a guy they were doing their best to pillory him and mock him and make him a fool. I think the drug story may have had elements of truth, but I think overall, it was a phony story, and they were just trying to basically get rid of him in the media and just set up the whole thing that he's sick and he's not taking care of himself. And then he just dies of this cancer that really is extremely rare and super fast. And then he's gone. I even
mm.
think Jack Layton, they engineered him out of the story too.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
oh interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you think, oh, it couldn't happen in Canada. But actually, when the closer you are to a story, the less likely you are to believe it. You think, "Oh, it couldn't happen here. I would have heard something. I live here."
Of course, when you say Jack Layton, with my interest in prostitution-related matters, I think of the story where he was caught in front of a massage parlor. The police stopped
Mhm.
him or something,
Yeah.
and I think he was just coming out of the place, and they let him go on his way.
Or maybe that was an engineered story.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
sure.
Like, now, as a fakeologist, that's the first thing, but if you didn't know about how easy it is to fool people and how most stories are fake, you would never consider it, but now, anytime there's a story, it's the first thing you consider, which actually always makes more sense. When you try and put the story that makes no sense together, when you know it's fake, it makes total sense. Like even the latest thing with this Buffalo football player. I don't really care about the Buffalo Bills other than the fact that, they can't really ever win because it's too small of a market and there's not enough people. But everyone else talks about, oh, he died of this or the guy really died. But the actual story is the whole thing was probably a scripted event. Makes way more sense.
And so
So,
when he returned I guess it was a few days ago or whatever, where he was wearing a mask or glasses or something, and he was kind of covered up, anyways.
yeah,
You think that was just a story? Like they wanted people to speculate that?
yeah.
Yeah,
But
they,
and
they were they were
yeah.
deliberately making it look fake. In other words, you're saying.
Maybe. I don't even know the whole story. I only hear through other people that filter my information about the story because I'm not following it closely enough to pursue the story
Right.
because I know the whole thing makes no sense. There's enough problems with the story to tell me it's just all theater. I don't just like I don't break down the problems, say continuity problems in a movie because I know it's fake. It
Right.
doesn't make sense wasting time talking about a movie and problems in the story. Because I have a really hard time watching movies now because I just think, oh, well, what about this? Why didn't he do this? I'm even watching old Rockford Files, and I say, why doesn't
Sure.
the guy ever look behind him? Why does someone always come up behind him and knock him over the head? Does he not look
Right.
around? So it's really hard to accept the story.
Yeah, I'm seeing Hollywood a whole different way since the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different experience watching movies now.
Yeah, it's really difficult. They're not as entertaining anymore because you just know that the story is it's just too hard to believe. Even when you suspend disbelief, it still doesn't work. So it's kind of a occupational hazard of being a fakeologist.
Right.
But anyway, we've been going about an hour and a half.
Yep.
I've sort of talked myself out a bit. I know I should have asked you a few more questions, but sometimes I just want to give you because I don't talk to many people from Toronto because
Right.
there's just not enough fakeologists out there from our area, which is really sad, which is why we're going the way we're going. Um, People are believing the whole COVID narrative in Toronto probably more than anywhere else.
It certainly seems like it in my circles. It's
Mhm.
like I said, yeah, most people I know believe
Are
it.
Now this is a standard question I ask everyone. Do you know anyone in your immediate circle that has been killed or injured by the vaccine?
No, the closest to that where it's, I mean, it's kind of a question.
Mhm.
One of my cousins, last summer
Mhm.
had this weird attack of amnesia.
Okay.
Suddenly, didn't know where he was. He was upstairs in his house, and he didn't know where he was.
Yeah. Is he older?
And let me think. He's around 50.
Oh, that's a little young. Okay, so I'm around
Right.
50. Yeah, okay, that's a little young.
hmm
But not no
so,
yeah. Not
but that's the closest. Like, once I heard that, I was like, oh, is that some kind of vaccine injury?
yeah.
But who knows? It's hard to say that, and that's the only thing like that. Although another one of my friends, a vaxxed friend, has said that suddenly he's having memory problems. And when I was talking to another one of my cousins, she said, yeah, lots of people she knows are having memory problems. But this is all kind of vague. I don't know. It's not,
Yeah, it's really hard to attribute necessarily to the vaccine, that's the problem.
yeah. But
And
no one in my circle has gotten, cancer or any kind of blood clot thing or
yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah, it's a tough one because confirmation bias is very dangerous where you take a position and you try and make every story fit your belief system. So I'm cautious about it that I don't fall into that trap where I just
Right.
take every person's injury without knowing anything about their medical background, their habits, what they do, and trying to attribute it to that. But I'm pretty aware of just the whole vaccine adjuvant story in general
hmm
as a fakeologist because when you question everything, you got to question everything in the medical field, how it came to
Sure.
be, and you got to question all these so-called cures and treatments, and you really got to look deep. And it doesn't take long to just throw out the official stories. So without the official stories, you really have to really hypothesize, and no one's going to back you up because there is no money or research going into those areas by design. They just don't want the answers. I think they know the answers on many of the things they say they're researching and spending billions of dollars, but as long as they make sure you're not researching in the right area, then they don't have to worry about what you come up with because they know they know they know where not to go. It's pretty simple.
hmm
So anyway, we haven't really said anything controversial, so I'm gonna leave the YouTube video up. And
Oh, you left YouTube on this time.
I did. I didn't turn it off because we weren't really saying anything, I think, to knock us off. We haven't really done any speculation. We're not really talking directly about anything that's considered medical misinformation, I guess. I guess that's the main thing. We haven't really said anything about that. So we're not gonna go in any deeper. And unless somebody flags the video, I haven't had any trouble with YouTube lately, but I do usually cut it off just in case.
Right.
But I think we're okay. But if the video does disappear or the channel does disappear off YouTube for a while, don't forget facotube.com. I have put a link to the show notes where I search for the word Duisburg on Facotube. There's a number of good videos that have Duisburg stuff in them, including this interview that he did on the Joe Rogan show in 2012. Didn't
Oh,
realize
okay.
Joe Rogan. It's really good. I
Mhm.
don't think Duisburg is talking these days. I don't know if he's too old or he's just kept quiet, but that was pretty darn good and just gives you some clues as to what's going on with and yeah, if you looked into AIDS, that's why I call this COVIDs because it's really just
Oh, yeah, it's
a
the
carbon
same thing.
copy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Except with AIDS, they targeted a specific group,
Yep.
gay people, and now they're targeting everyone.
Well, don't forget it was gay people in Africa. So that's a
Correct.
pretty large area.
That's true. Gay people in Africa.
In Africa. So the continent of Africa went into the crosshairs. The thing is
Yep.
though that I don't know how successful they were in most of Africa just because it's so underdeveloped or was at the time.
Mhm.
And now, of course, Africans, like everyone else in the world, are walking around with smartphones. Where there wasn't a landline, they just put up a cell tower and all of a sudden everyone could be connected to the internet with their smartphone. So they know and can know as much as we do over there, as long as they can understand, I guess, English. But with the translators, I'm sure every language is translatable. So I think Africans have their AIDS experience plus their skepticism of the colonialists. And now they got the internet where they can look everything up. So I don't think they're falling for it, this whole thing, in the same way, say, us so called first world smart North Americans or Western Europeans are.
Mm.
I don't think they're as trusting in general. So I don't know how well this thing has worked over there. So,
Yeah. Well, I hope for their sake that. Well, it certainly sounds like they're doing better than we are.
all right. So I put a link to all your books on Indigo, and so all the titles are there. And
Okay, great.
can you just give me a brief synopsis of your latest book, Paying for It? Because
Actually, the latest book is it's called "Mary Wept Over the Feet of Jesus." It's
okay, that's not on this list here. Maybe it
it
is.
it's uh, it's another prostitution related book, but it's
Okay,
about
yeah.
biblical, you know, prostitution in the Bible, basically.
Okay. How did you get interested in this topic? And maybe we can bring you back and talk about it.
Sure. How did well I because I was paying for sex, that made me interested in it. It's like why are gay people interested in gay issues?
Right, right. Okay.
If you pay for sex, like that'll make you interested in the subject, I guess.
Is that something that is that sort of a taboo thing to even talk about in general, or are there other books on this topic?
Oh, there's lots of books. Um,
Right.
lots of sex workers have written about their experience. Fewer people, fewer Johns or fewer clients have written from the perspective of actually paying for sex. I
Okay.
guess, I guess, I guess it is kind of embarrassing to put yourself out and admit
Yeah,
that you
and
pay
use
for
your
sex.
real name. It is it's
Sure.
an amazing topic. I have to admit, when I first started reading, and I don't read really. I remember, I don't know who had the book. It might have been in my house. We had the book The Happy Hooker
Oh, right, right.
with
Xavier Hollander or
y-
whatever her name was.
yeah, there was a Toronto connection. I guess it's sort of why I found it interesting because she had some kind of Toronto connection. I can't remember.
She did. did. She either visited here frequently or she lived here for a while, something like that.
Yeah.
I've certainly heard anecdotes about her being here.
Right. Yeah, I think she might have been Dutch, but I can't remember. But it was I know I read that book and maybe a couple other books around there. I think I think it was just because maybe I found it in the library. I can't remember where I found it, but it was kind of interesting. And she does describe her exploits as a hooker.
Hmm.
So that was kind of interesting. But I didn't know there was a book by Johns. So you wrote Paying for It, and it looks like 2013, and you wrote another one on the same subject, but from the Bible stories. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mary wept over the feet of Jesus. Yeah.
Wow. Is that blasphemous in any
Oh,
way?
well, the truth is, I'm a Christian,
Right.
but yes, I think many of my fellow Christians would find the book offensive and blasphemous.
All right.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
I think it's all scripturally based. Like I don't think I'm saying anything outrageous, but
Yeah.
I think there are people who would think it is what I'm saying in the book is outrageous.
All right. Well, do I have to read the book to interview you about it, or?
No, 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 no. If you want to talk about it sometime, sure. Like you don't have to read the book. I mean, although, hey, if you want, I'd be willing to send it to you.
All right. Well, maybe which one would I find more interesting? Paying for It or the Mary wept over the feet of Jesus?
Gee,
'Cause
I
it is somewhat interesting to me. I
uh,
have not and probably never will pay for sex, but,
right,
it every guy with a pulse has probably thought about
right.
it. Truth be
Um,
told, so it would be a
hey,
very interesting interview.
I can send you both books, and you can read like you can read neither, or you can read whichever one seems more interesting to you, or whatever.
Alright, that'd be fine. That'd be great.
Okay. And now I know your virtual box number, so I've got a place to mail them to.
Oh, you can just send me the PDF if you want, so you don't have to.
PDF? How computer literate do you think I am?
Oh,
I,
alright.
I
Did
don't
it
have a PDF.
really? Nobody converted it? I thought almost every book was somebody converted it.
There probably is an ebook version
Yeah,
but I've
okay.
I've never had an ebook version, and I wouldn't know how to convert it to a
Alright.
PDF. Um, yeah, yeah. So
Okay, well, if you wanna send me
it's
a hard copy, I okay,
it's
that'd be
either the
fantastic.
paper version or nothing, unfortunately.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fantastic if you wanna do it. I don't wanna put you out expense-wise. You can make that if you want your donation, that would be just fine, to the
Oh well,
site. That would
I
be
can I
that
can
would be
include some
fine.
money beyond that.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to, but that would be fine if you just sent the book. Yeah, I think that would be interesting. I'm not sure if we could work any fakeology into the interview, but maybe my audience would be interested anyway in hearing about it.
Sure, sure.
It's it's really, really unique, and it is interesting the people you talk with when you are talking about fakeology. I have to admit.
Hmm.
I guess we're all kinda off just a bit, all fakeologists. We all have just some
I'm
quirkiness to us, no?
I'm definitely off and quirky.
Right, right. Okay. Any final comments, concerns, questions about fakeology or directions that you like us to go in or you've enjoyed in the past? Any final
Not
thoughts?
really. I'm just enjoying the show.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit disappointed during December when there were so few shows,
Oh, thank you.
but I understand why you weren't able to put out as many as usual. But
Well, sometimes I also just lose steam as well. You think, okay, what haven't I talked about now?
right.
Eh, So, how did you just real quick before we go? How did you meet Greg? How did you guys get connected on
Well,
this worldwide thing?
Greg's into comics,
Oh, I see.
and we met at a comic book convention and just started chatting, I can't remember, one or the other of us said, hey, we should get together sometime. So a couple months later, he came into Toronto and we hung out for an afternoon. And
Okay.
yeah.
And you figured out you're both sort of fakeologists somehow.
He's probably more of a fakeologist than I am. But
Okay. So he let off a couple of comments and you picked up on them and he explained fakeology to you?
yeah, I guess. I mean, I knew a lot of what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But he brought up the Fakeologist show. He's like, "Are you listening to the Fakeologist?" I was like, "What's that?"
Oh, nice.
And he was right that I would find it an interesting show.
Oh, amazing. Well, that's great. That's fun because you really, the only way that one, I know anyone is listening is if they call in or email me. And two, the only way to really expand our listener base is just people telling others about it, because there really is no great simple way to discover any podcast, and including fakeologist stuff. So
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't think of anyone really in my circle to recommend the show to.
yeah.
I tried recommending. One of my friends asked, "Oh, what's a good conspiracy theory show to listen
Oh,
to?"
really?
And so I said, "Try James Corbett," because I knew this guy was he couldn't handle stuff like the NASA stuff. Like that would be too outrageous for him. He would want something that's more grounded and whatever. So I thought James Corbett would be his speed, but no, he found James Corbett to be outrageous and ridiculous, and so I'm sure that if I recommended the Fakeologist to him, he'd be even more like
He'd immediately reject
he'd have
us.
a
He wouldn't
more
even.
extreme reaction.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. Although it's so easy to pick apart NASA. It's crazy easy.
Yeah,
And
but most people can't see it.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. That's all I can see is fakery, and it's not even any better than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's the same old crap, and it's
Hmm.
bad. It's
Yeah.
really bad stuff. They have not picked up their game.
Hmm.
So make sure
So
you.
there was someone around me that I could recommend. Even like one of my good close friends,
Mhm.
my only close friend who's unvaxxed. I don't think he'd respond to the show.
Yeah,
He still believes, even though he saw through all the COVID stuff,
yeah,
he still believes in global warming or in climate change or whatever they call it.
right.
So
Man-made
if
climate change. Yeah,
yes, so if he can't see through that, like, is he going to respond to the fakeologist? I don't know.
yeah. Well, the thing is, I try and make my topics and my interests really, really wide. For instance, I'll talk about Agenda 21. I'll talk about communitarianism. I'll talk about NASA, 9/11, scientism. I do love politics, even though it's really been poorly faked lately. Really, it's really poor. I'll talk about just about anything with a bent. I'll talk about local politics, local fakery. Um, I'm not even really focused anymore on any one topic. So I make it really varied, really varied. I'll talk about a lot, obviously, about health. I'll talk about Club of Rome. I'm just looking at the stuff I really like about FacoTube. I'll talk about controlled opposition. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to how we are managed, because Matt Ehret's the one that called us talking cows. We really are managed. We need to be managed. We're just what we're doing is
Talking
not
cows.
random.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I just took me a moment or two to take that comment in.
Yeah, we're cattle. We
Sure, sure.
need to be shown which way to go.
As Charles Fort said, we are property.
Yeah, we are owned. We are commoditized, and it's really interesting. I'll talk about the NFL and talk about people like Chris Sky, who most Canadians find his whole persona distasteful, but he's actually telling the best truth in his kind of bombastic way.
Have you interviewed him?
I have tried. I put a couple requests in, but I came to the conclusion that he's got so much exposure. He doesn't really need my help,
Right.
and I agree with most of what he said, so I really wouldn't be able to challenge him. But I have tried a couple of times, but I'm actually made a couple comments on his Telegram, and his administrator banned me, so I don't bother anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I also talk about elite gender inversion and androgyny, Kabbalah. Like, there's nobody that I know that has such a wide swath of topics. I don't know if you've looked into that whole
The
topic.
elite gender, yeah. I mean, I've certainly heard your interviews with or your talks with Mr. E,
Yeah,
and it's interesting, but I don't know. Like, sure, I can see Michelle Obama and Theresa Tam,
yeah, you
but
can, yeah, yeah, yeah.
but beyond that, I don't know. It sounds a bit questionable.
Mhm.
Sometimes women are just a bit mannish. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean they were born men.
I agree. I agree, and I just know that we are not getting the whole story, so I'm just trying to figure it out. I don't have any absolute pronouncements on the topic, but I love people that dig into it because even if they're half right, it's quite the deception.
Right.
So I don't tend to make absolute I know everything. I just like talking about it, and if
Hmm.
someone is really coming across as they and I find Mr. E extremely humble as well, and
Oh yeah, no, he's an interesting guy to listen to, and he doesn't just talk about that subject,
yeah,
although obviously it's one of his main areas of interest. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I listen to his episodes even though I'm I'm not
You're not convinced.
entirely yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not convinced. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, on that happy note, we've been going almost 2 hours. It's been a great
Okay. Yeah.
call, and thank you for using a landline. Everyone should just really hear the difference between a landline and a crappy cell line. It's
Right.
really remarkable. So, yeah, great call, great clarity, even though you say you're not a computer plugged in person. Um, how do you listen to the podcast again then? If you say you don't have Wi-Fi internet at home?
No, I live in an apartment building,
Yeah.
and downstairs there's a library,
Okay.
and I just go down there once a day, try and spend just a short amount of time in there. I don't want to be too whatever
Yeah.
distracted by stuff online.
Okay.
Get my emails, send some emails, download some podcasts to listen to when I'm offline up here back in my apartment.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow. So you are really disconnected. So you don't have social media really to
No,
speak of.
no.
Wow.
The
Okay.
closest thing to that I have is I've got a Patreon page so that
Oh, do you? Okay.
people who like my stuff can support
Okay.
me through that.
What is it? I don't mind publicizing it.
Oh, okay.
Patreon, of course. Patreon.com forward slash.
Patreon.com slash Chester Brown, all one word.
All right. I will I'm a patron, a patronizer of many people, including Mr. E. So I can add you, no sweat. Oh wow. There you go. $2. Okay, here we go. Oh, you got some pretty good quantity of patrons. Very good.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, that'll be show note number 6. So if you wanna support Chester and his work, you can do so easily on Patreon. Wow. This is pretty cool. A real live comic book author. Yeah, my children are both into comics, so you have anything they would be interested in, do you think? Or anything? Because I know
The
comics is such a huge field.
most of my content is sort of adult oriented. The closest thing to a kid's book is the Louis Riel book because there's no
Okay.
sex in that one. It's just people shooting at each other and politics and whatnot.
Okay.
And actually, it is popular. Yeah, like a lot of parents do buy that one for their kids because they figure, hey, it's educational or whatever. This is a story you should know about, or So, so I don't know. Maybe that one for your kids. I don't know.
Okay. Well, they're adults anyway, but all right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll be interested in that. All right, Chester. Good chat. Thank you so much for contacting me. This was fun. Yeah, I never know how these shows are gonna go with,
Hmm.
but this has been extremely interesting, and I'll look
My
forward to
pleasure.
receiving those books, and we'll tackle that controversial concept of memoirs of a John. that's
Sure.
that's
Sounds good.
that's have you done any other radio interviews mainstream about those books?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been on CBC.
Oh wow.
When Paying for It came out,
Yeah.
that was during the era when Gian Gameshi
Oh right.
had that show on CBC. So he had me on his show, and I talked about paying for sex.
Wow. I think that was a whole men are pigs psyop, the whole Gian Gameshi
Right.
thing.
Yeah, talking about Canadian psyops.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was all BS.
Hmm.
That was the Canadian version. America got Bill Cosby, which
Right.
it's just ridiculous, honestly. But I guess he made the sacrifice to play along. I'm guessing he got paid real well, but that's
Yeah.
a whole other subject, another psyop. My goodness. All right, Chester. Thank you for joining in, and we'll talk to you next time. You'll be back.
Terrific. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
There goes Chester Brown. What an interesting call tonight. Went almost 2 hours. You never know who's a fakeologist out there. And we're going to have him back talking about his very interesting other books. I'm going to have to look up and see if I can find some of the interviews and take a listen. But well, maybe if you guys are interested in that, send me a line, drop me a line. Did you like tonight's show? Send me an email. I'm at fakeologist.com. And wow, another fakeologist in Toronto. That's pretty cool. All right. Again, if you like the show, fakeologist.com/donate. You can pay in the Go credit card, Epic Cash, Epic Pay, Monero, Bitcoin. You can mail in some cash if that's what you want. You can just send me a postcard if you want as well. All that is welcome. We like all feedback. And of course, your name will go up on the donor list. If you don't want it on the list, just let me know. I won't put it on there. Thanks to Harmon, a regular donator. Thank you so much, Harmon. I appreciate that. Nancy K, Benoit, Harmon, Lori, Nick W. Thanks to the monthly donors. Zalfalex, Gibby, Ezity, Daniel, John R. Thanks all you guys, the monthly sustainable donations. Most of the money goes to FacoTube. It does cost quite a bit of money to host videos, but I think it's well worth it. This is a permanent repository of my videos. It won't be taken down, won't be deleted. One of them has coming up to 100,000 views about the SPARS plan starting in 2025. I think I'm going to be spending some time on TikTok. I had no idea how big TikTok has taken off. It's actually really hurting Google, I've heard right now. So I might post a clip of this show on TikTok. So if you haven't checked out TikTok, you might want to do that. And Fakeologist is on TikTok, fake11.com/TikTok. fake11.com/Discord, fake11.com/Telegram, fake11.com/Instagram. We're on most socials, not actively, but we are all over the place. Mainly the blog, fakeologist.com/blog, the forums, fakeologist.com/forums2. Very active, very interesting. My sub-blog, moreab.fakeologist.com, shorts.fakeologist.com, fakeotube.com. I think I've said enough. So thanks, guys, for joining. And are we back tomorrow? Let me just look at fakeologist.com/live. Maybe Frank is going to be on tomorrow. Frank, an ounce of salt. We're going to try and do something weekly. So an ounce of salt may be here tomorrow. I got to confirm with him because Wednesday is Uncle Vigilante. We're going to talk Epic Cash. Pretty sure. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for joining. See you tomorrow, probably. Take care. Good night.